Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ozark Radio Hour, brought to you by the Eureka Springs Independent and the Inside Straight and Thanatopsis Club. I'm Kent Crow.
And I'm Jeremiah Alvarado, and we're your hosts for about an hour of purely organic radio. Always fresh, always local, and always honest.
And while we're always fresh, always local, and always honest, we're not always perfect, and that's why we're going to let Lieutenant Dan out of the control booth today and bring him into the studio. Dan Croats, what are you doing here?
I am filling in for Richard Pillay, who is engaging himself as a case of arrested development, playing dress-up on a heavily financed noise machine in Sturgis, South Dakota. But Richard will be back next week, and I'll be headed back to the control booth.
Well, by a case of arrested development, playing dress-up on a heavily financed noise machine, you mean he's riding around on a Harley somewhere out in the Netherlands and pretending to be something that he's not?
He is being one of the wild ones on a motorcycle.
Well,
and may I say, what is Richard, 70 years old?
He's 70 years old now, and he is, working on his bucket list.
I know, and I don't know whether to pat him on the back and applaud him for doing that, or to suggest that he seek out counseling.
Well, I think that under the statutes of the state of Arkansas, we can in fact apply for a guardianship.
He is a vulnerable adult, isn't he?
He is, and we can question his competence at this point.
Well, let's do that when he comes back next week.
Jump in, Jeremiah.
Well, I think it's good that he's, getting rid of his bucket list.
Well,
living life to its fullest.
It is. We're just hoping that he doesn't hurt himself while he's out venturing around. My understanding is after Sturgis, he's heading further west. He's going to be traveling through the Four Corners region, New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, and Utah. And
is he going to do that on his motorcycle?
I think he is.
My goodness.
And,
good for him.
After he finishes up through there, he's going to swing down through southern parts of Arizona, I believe, and then head back home.
So he's going to be traveling through this high desert, this very spiritual, beautifully quiet, beautifully abstract.
It is
part.
when you shut off the motorcycle.
And he's going to go through this beautifully spiritual, beautifully abstract, lovely, lovely part of the world, playing all this damn racket.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's what he's going to be doing. He's born to be wild. Okay.
Well, bikers are pretty good customers in Eureka, at least. Come in, spend money, leave.
Well, I'm
quite
sure
shortly later.
Richard is going to spend a lot of money on this trip. He is not going to sleep at the side of the road. He will be buying food and paying for motels. So
that's the way to
he
do
will be supporting the U.S. economy to the utmost.
Well, as a former book dealer, let me assure you that no one on a motorcycle has ever purchased a book.
I'm sure that we could take issue with that because you're engaging in some terrible stereotyping.
You're correct. You're absolutely right.
Oh my gosh, you do.
So anyway, Jeremiah, what's going on here?
That's actually a good question. What is going on here?
Have we confused you with, just for our audience, Kent and I are men of a certain age, and Jeremiah is a young person.
Yeah.
So,
that makes him a man of a certain age, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
That's absolutely
all right.
Right.
Well,
so are we overwhelming you?
With old age, yes.
Okay.
Well, and the problem here is that we're doing this apparently without a script now.
Absolutely. All right.
And I'm trying to get Jeremiah back on cue.
Okay. Well, let me say that I admit to being an elderly, middle-class twit. And I suppose that, I should be a little softer and more respectful of these motorcyclists on these wonderful machines and thankful for the money they spend.
And
I've never spent a nickel with me.
We could probably take issue with the fact that you're even middle class. Because in 1900 the U.S. Census Department would have listed you as lower middle class if you had fewer than 2 servants.
Well, I am absolutely, in a previous lifetime, I was a sweet, what I call a sweet working class bodhisattva. I mean, I worked nights at American farmland as a welder, putting farm equipment together so that I could go to school during the day. So that, was just a working class guy trying to get better at what.
Trying to get better and be able to pay those 2 servants.
Well, actually, yeah, that's right. I wanted 2 servants. I'm afraid I've never succeeded in doing that.
But you got married.
I did, yeah.
Okay.
But anyways,
we're not going to talk about that. Susan will have a day with you.
I plead guilty to being a middle class twit, or at least aspiring to be that.
All right. I'm glad to be here with you, twit.
Thank you.
So you have pled guilty, and I am willing to adjudicate you as such.
Your Honor.
All right. But hey, I think we've had some mail. And it looks like Anita Showalter from Holiday Island wrote in this week to say it's okay for us to be middle-class twits. And she says, quote, I never know what the CAPC, City Advertising and Promotion Committee, is doing. Anita writes, all I know is that I can hardly hear myself think with the racket these motorcycles make. I was following a pack of them north on Highway 23, and they sounded like World War III. Worse, they drove about 25 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour under the speed limit, and had traffic backed up all the way to the water tower. If the CAPC is spending money to bring them here, please tell them to stop. Any thoughts about that, Jeremiah?
Okay, well, to begin on what the CAPC is doing, just so our listeners will know, next week we'll be having Karen Pryor from the CAPC on the third side of the coin.
Oh, great.
For an interview. But, the CAPC doesn't really try to advertise to bikers. I think I gave the wrong impression last week whenever I tried to talk about them. But most of those bikers are really, a lot of the times over the years, have been extra runoff from Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue over in Fayetteville. And Eureka Springs has become to be known as a very popular place for those bikers to show up.
Well, that's true. And I have a friend who lives in Nevada who does some biking, and about 4 or 5 years ago, he was back here on vacation. He was driving his car, but he was just enamored with our roads and our scenery and just thought this looked like a motorcyclist paradise. Of course, he lives out in Nevada. You get on your bike and it's, 300 miles of straight, flat road. So, this looks somewhat challenging to him. But, when you were talking about the CAPC, you were saying that your impression that was that the demographic that they were targeting was the baby boomers, people of mine and Dan's age and demographic, and that Dan took the position that those individuals were riding those heavily financed motorcycles and playing dress-up. And it seems that you're saying that that really isn't what the CAPC is doing. They're not targeting just motorcyclists. It's just a particular demographic.
When I talked last week, I think I tried to talk about, and if I may, this is a mistake that I made, is I tried to talk about something that I am probably not the best qualified to talk about, which is kind of what... Welcome to Ozark Radio. I understand that. But, for the third side of the coin or just anything in relation to it, I want to try to have a higher standard than just my thoughts and my emotions, I guess would be the best way to put it.
That's admirable. It's never stood in my way.
No, when you get in the deep end of the pool, you better start swimming.
I understand, but that's why I want to have Karen on next week.
Okay.
And that's why she'll be there.
Well, that'll be very interesting, and it'll be very enlightening to hear what she has to say about what the CAPC is or is not doing and what they're trying to bring to the community and the markets that they're trying to target to bring people to Eureka Springs. We won't stereotype our visitors anymore as overaged, middle-aged, trust fund babies riding heavily financed noise machines.
Dan, whenever I say don't stereotype, I mean don't stereotype, but I don't ask you to suck up.
Well, should we listen to what you have to say on the third side of the coin?
I think so, yeah.
I think that's pretty good.
Hello, everyone. This is Jeremiah Alvarado, bringing you the third side of the coin. And today I want to talk about boxes and masking tape. I'm getting sick of being put in a box. We live in a county that for some reason can't get over the fact that a few yards of water lies between us. Are the two sides of the Kings River that different? Are we really stuck in this ancient idea that because we are on one bank or another that we are different? People are people. People are only people. So why is it that we seem to think that the people on either bank are so different? And to continue on the thought, why do we have to profile those on either side of the bank? Are we an overglorified nursing home? No. Are we privileged trust fund babies? No. Is the other side a group of hicks and wannabe rednecks? No. Why is it that we call a man that has put people and religions in boxes a sociopath? Why is it that we scold him for being small-minded and to playing towards others' emotions? When some of those people that call him a sociopath, call him small-minded, do exactly what they scold that man for putting people in boxes for the side of the bank that they are on. This has been Jeremiah Alvarado, and I wish all of you a wonderful week.
All right, Jeremiah, it sounds like you're saying we should avoid stereotyping and putting labels on people, that we shouldn't put people into boxes. Is that your point of view?
Well, yeah. When we all got together last week on our company picnic, there was a lot of joking about how different people on either side of the Kings River, how different they are, and, kind of making jokes about them. But kind of my point is that we were trying to have like a serious conversation about Eureka, about the Ozark Radio Hour, about the CAPC, just as a group. But, we spent all this time making jokes about people on the other side of the Kings River that we never actually got anywhere with the conversation.
Well, I think that's probably correct. But let me say this. I don't think that we can take the position that stereotypes have no value, or that we should avoid them altogether. And the reason that I say that is because our stereotypes are actually based in fundamental truths. And when we examined the basis of a particular stereotype historically, we sometimes find that there is that kernel of truth about what someone or a particular group of people are, or how they behaved, or how they lived. Stereotypes grow out of those realities and are sometimes embellished, inflated, and used in totally unacceptable ways to identify particular groups of people. When it comes to stereotyping people on one side of this county versus the other side of this county, there are some, in fact, truths that form the basis of those stereotypes. As an example, when we look at the city of Eureka Springs, which was born of, created by, and still exists today to serve the tourist industry, and is populated by, generally, a group of people who were neither born in this county or raised in this county, as opposed to the people on the other side of the Kings River, the east side, who have their history and culture in agriculture, the farming industry, and poultry industry, all of those things.
I think the joke is that the Kings River is where Woodstock meets livestock.
Well, that is certainly the identifiable cliche, I guess, that we use. But there is truth in that, and I I didn't grow up here. I was born here. I am fifth generation Carroll County. My family goes back to the 1840s, but I have connections with both sides of the river. As an example, my great-grandfather owned the livery stable in Berryville. His brother owned the livery stable in Eureka Springs and provided carriages to the Crescent Hotel and riding horses to tourists.
My goodness, is that right?
That's right.
Wow.
My great-grandfather, J.W. Freeman, was once the president of the Eureka Springs Bank and later a vice president of the Berryville Bank. And my grandfather...
Oh, wait, just a moment
Yes.
now. So you actually come from a line of bankers.
Well, one banker who had a very unfortunate experience because after he left the First National Bank of Berryville and opened his own bank here on the Berryville Square, the Depression hit and we lost everything.
But I just want to remind you that
Yes.
you said just a moment ago that stereotypes can have some basis in fact.
They do.
So, all right. So now I'm feeling nervous because
Are you trying to stereotype me?
I'm that lower middle class guy you were talking about, and you are the heir to bankers. It's kind of frightening.
I'm the heir to bankers who went bust in the Depression.
I think my main issue with the whole stereotyping thing is that if we let stereotypes get in the way of a conversation, too much in the way of something that we were trying to accomplish, like here on the Ozark Radio Hour, or even outside, just talking with people on the street, that is not acceptable to use stereotypes. Letting a stereotype get in the way is unacceptable because it's.
Let me try something out on you. Okay. The median age in Eureka Springs is 50. Okay. That is 13 years older than Arkansas generally. In Berryville, the median age is 34 years. So people living in Eureka Springs, in terms of the median age, are 16 years older than people who are living in Berryville.
They're all members of the AARP.
Not only is Eureka Springs population older than any other population in the county, the city of Eureka Springs is one of the oldest in terms of population age in the entire state of Arkansas.
This is going to have dire consequences for the high school over there.
Anyways, Jeremiah, you live in a town that is populated by some of the oldest people in the state. The other thing is that, Berryville's population has increased 21% since 2000. And Eureka Springs' population has decreased by almost 9%. These are 2014 figures that I'm quoting. Here's my point. The city of Eureka Springs, instead of screwing around trying to dig some nickels out of tourists, ought to really, really be worried about their future and spending much energy and much time and some money on attracting younger families and making sure that the young people who live there can make a living there. That's my point.
Okay.
Well, you've lost me totally because I thought we were talking about stereotypes and you're talking about demographics.
I think that this can be a good leeway.
The point is that kind of emphasizing your point. Sometimes we put people in boxes, but those boxes fill up with facts. And the fact is, Jeremiah, Eureka Springs is a town full of old people. It's losing population, and there isn't any opportunity there for folks who live there.
Look, I'm going to jump in here, Jeremiah. Just hold your thought for just a minute.
I'm really.
You're really ready to jump on him.
Yeah.
But here's what I have to say, Dan, is that I understand that, and I understand the stereotypes that often we use with regard to Woodstock versus livestock. But one of the things about the Ozark Radio Hour is that I think that we have tried to emphasize that life is about community. And in order to be a successful community, whether we're talking about a city, a town, or a county, we have to overcome some of these stereotypes and learn that we have to work together. And one of the things that I have always felt is that the artificial division of the Kings River in this county has been the greatest barrier to success that our community is faced with. And until we overcome this stereotype of East versus West, we are going to be handicapped economically, socially and culturally.
Absolutely.
In a lot of ways that is just becoming unacceptable. And I think that Jeremiah is absolutely on point here with regard to the need to avoid many of these stereotypes and realize that they really aren't of value. And old guys like you and I think, are still using them to some degree to laugh about things and engage in sort of a local cultural humor. But going forward, going into the future, trying to build a better community, a viable economy in this county, we have to realize that those stereotypes can be detrimental.
Okay.
He said it?
He got it.
Let me entirely agree with you, Kent. The problem in hand, though, is that it is Eureka Springs and the residents of Eureka Springs that are the primary objectors and barriers to this engaging the future that you've described. Mm-hmm. It isn't, the notion of consolidating, for example, school systems will absolutely happen someday, and it will be Eureka Springs that objects to that. Well, the address of our dramatic healthcare needs, medical infrastructure in Carroll County, the problem lies with the residents of Eureka Springs.
Well, and let me say, it's not just Eureka Springs. The communities in this county are highly parochial. They are, like turf animals, if you will. And I think you touched on a really good point with regard to the school districts. We have a population in this county of just under 30,000 people. We have 3 school districts. We're paying 3 separate school superintendents, each one of them earning close to $100,000 a year. We can't afford that. Right. We just can't afford to do that. And when you look at, say, Springfield, Missouri, 90 miles away, they have a school district of 25,000 students, and they have 1 superintendent. Right. What in God's name is wrong with us? Why can't we figure this out? And it's partly because of those stereotypes that we have, the parochial nature of the individual communities, and the feeling that the other community can't be trusted. We have to get past that.
And thoughts on that, Jeremiah? Are folks in Berryville trustworthy?
All right.
If I may continue this conversation, because we're talking about merging of school systems, that kind of thing. What about, so as you guys know, a community center is slowly becoming into the works in Eureka Springs. Mm-hmm. It's slowly becoming a reality. How, we're talking about merging of school systems. What about, community centers? How do you feel about a community center being built in Eureka Springs when only maybe 20 miles away one is in Berryville? Or what do you think of that?
Well, I think that it's a great project. I think that it will serve Eureka Springs well if they can put it together. And I think that Eureka Springs needs to do things like that to attract new residents to the area. That is just as important and just as fundamental to a community's growth and development as things such as their school system, their medical facilities, the police and fire departments, their ambulance services. All of that infrastructure is necessary if you're going to attract either new industry or new residents to the area. 20 miles is too far apart for community centers in terms of especially young people, children after school, those types of things. They can't travel back and forth, and parents can't transport them. So a community center there, I think, is just as necessary as it is here in Berryville, a place where many activities take place, whether they're art activities, after school activities, swimming, gymnastics, soccer, all of the things that kids and young people need to engage in. Green Forest needs to be looking at doing the same thing. In terms of consolidation, I'm not saying that there isn't a way for them to work together and to share programs and to pool resources so that the programs that they offer are perhaps more sophisticated And I think that they need to look at doing those types of things, just as all of the communities in the county need to look at pooling other resources to bring better services to the population.
Yeah, and the notion of the community center is fine. The Berryville Community Center has more than 10,000 members, and they come from across the county and occasionally across the state line. The thing that Eureka Springs could benefit the most from, which could be almost entirely financed with federal dollars, would be the creation of a sustainable agriculture center with cold storage for small farmers, for small poultry farmers, folks like the folks who go to our farmers markets who vend there. Mm-hmm. Instead of looking at their decreasing population and their increasingly older population, and looking at strategies to bring new families here and to create opportunities for new businesses and so on, like cold storage and sustainable agriculture, they get into these endless conversations about community centers. So one of the things that I would hope that the city of Eureka Springs would start doing would be to looking at agricultural tourism.
But finding someone within the community, an activist, if you will, who is willing to undertake the necessary actions to make that a reality, it's extremely difficult. Finding someone with the abilities, the talents, the skills, and the passion to make something like that a reality is hard. It's like trying to find somebody in Berryville to set up a brewery. Which, I just can't find anyone who will do it for me.
Don't we have a history of moonshining around here?
Well, it's not quite the same as a custom brewery making great local beer from the Ozarks.
Yeah. Well, Jeremiah, we're passing the torch to you. I mean, Kent has described who's needed to make these changes, and that would be you and your generation.
Well, he's interested in journalism, not chemistry, which is what I need for a brewer.
Well, you could begin by writing a series of articles talking about what genuine economic development is. It's not trying to rob these geriatric motorcyclists out of their life savings.
Who never buy books.
They never buy books. It is about creating business and creating jobs.
Some of those geriatric motorcyclists are lawyers and doctors.
Yeah, playing dress up.
Yeah, well, they have books. They do buy books. Hey, well, look, there's a lot to discuss, but let's move along, or we're going to be here a long time. Hey, Sharon Laborde is back teaching this fall, and she has something to tell us about in Welcome to the Conversation. Here's Sharon.
Welcome to the conversation. This is Sharon Laborde. Last week on the program, I discussed my experiences teaching in an inner-city high school in the Deep South in the 1990s. It's hard to believe over 20 years have passed, and I'm a long way from the time when I was ready to give up the teaching profession one day and inspired by the talented students I worked with the next. Yes, it's been a long time since those days to the life I live now in the beautiful Ozarks. I'm still involved in education, and since moving here have taught in Arkansas and Missouri, and now once again in Arkansas. I just can't seem to retire. Recently, I was asked an interesting question about education. It was asked during one of those discussions with a friend, and there have been many lately. Anyway, the friend thought I was out of my mind to consider teaching full-time again. Besides, she asked, has that much changed in the schools to make you want to go back? The answer to that question is yes. A great deal has changed, not just here in the Ozarks, but back home in the Deep South. Many advances have been made, especially in technology, and more students are engaged in learning and see it as a step toward a brighter future. That's one positive development. And a number of schools are working very hard to reach as many at-risk young people as they can through various alternative programs. Schools in many communities in the Ozarks have embraced a growing Hispanic population and have initiated programs to serve them. There are so many success stories. But there still remains a deep underlying problem, two actually. Every day when the bus stops in front of the school, a large percentage of those children arrive hungry. No, not for learning, but for food. According to the Census Bureau, at least 13.4 million to 16.5 million, but maybe a much higher number, of children live in poverty. Much higher than countries in Western Europe and even in other parts of the world. Yes, I know students are fed a breakfast and lunch at school, but those may be the only 2 meals those kids get during the day. Some schools even have backpack programs to send food home with their students on the weekend. So here's the first problem the schools have to deal with. How can you teach a hungry child from a disadvantaged background, one whose home may not be safe for him or anyone else who lives there? For those kids, school is the best thing they have in their lives, but learning is not the priority. The priority is survival. You go to school and they give you food. Personally, I don't think they get enough food in those school meals, but at least they get something. Well, you might say, we have the food stamp program and other forms of welfare, but most of those programs have been cut drastically in the last few years. I constantly hear people on television and on social media call for drug testing adults on welfare. I suppose they want to take food out of the mouths of children whose parents smoke a fatty now and then. I think they simply don't understand the problem of childhood hunger. Punish the parent and you punish the child. Well, I've gone on a small rant, and I didn't mean to, but the fact remains that there's a great deal of poverty in the Ozarks. I've taught students who were homeless, abandoned, or dirty because their family was so poor there was no electricity or running water in the home. I've seen teachers take them in, wash their clothes, buy them snacks, and I'll bet the same thing is going on in just about every school district in the country that's not in an affluent area. So why are we so surprised when these kids don't see the value of an education? They simply don't see the way out. Unless they are encouraged to work to break the cycle of poverty, and too many of them give up early. They haven't been nurtured. They may come from a family that places no value on education, or from a family with both parents working for minimum wage and unable to spend time with their children, especially during their early years. So the kids get off the bus in front of the school, and in America, about 37% of those kids live in poverty. This, to me, is the biggest problem facing the schools today in the Ozarks and back home in the inner city. The school has become responsible for the child, not just to educate them, but to try to take care of them. And let me tell you, it's not easy. Not only does it break your heart, but many good teachers leave education. They can't handle it. Many of these kids become behavior problems or smell bad or have no social skills. And when they start to mature, too many adopt an apathetic attitude about school. They're forced to attend, but they're not interested in the only chance they have to get out of what may be a cycle of generational poverty. They give up before they grow up. Remember President Lyndon Johnson's war on poverty? It's still being fought, maybe in your local school district. What can you do to promote change? Volunteer at your local school. Spend some time reading to little kids or just spending time with them. On my first day teaching in my inner city high school back home, a teacher who had taught there for many years gave me some advice that I've always tried to follow. She said, "Stand at the door of your classroom between every class. Smile at each student as they arrive and pay them a compliment or call their name. Make them feel like somebody." I'll never forget that advice. We have to help all of our students feel like they are important, that they are somebody. I'm so pleased you could join me today on Welcome to the Conversation. I'll be back soon with reports on life here in the beautiful Ozark Mountains of Northwest Arkansas and Missouri. Until next time, this is Sharon Laborde, cultural editor of Ozark Harvest Radio Hour. And now, please stay tuned for the following brief message.
Did you know Lions Clubs International is the largest service club organization in the world? Its 1.35 million members and more than 46,000 clubs are serving communities in 207 countries and geographical areas around the globe. Since 1917, Lions Clubs have aided the blind and visually impaired, championed youth initiatives, and strengthened local communities through hands-on service and humanitarian projects. The Lions motto is, "We serve," and local Lions Club programs include sight conservation, hearing and speech conservation, diabetes awareness, youth outreach, international relations, environmental issues, and many other programs. The Lions Club of Eureka Springs is seeking civic-minded men and women to join them in making a difference in our community, and we would love to have you join us in our work. The club meets the second and fourth Wednesday of every month at Forest Hill Restaurant at noon. Please join us for lunch. We'll be so glad to see you.
Well, thank you, Sharon. Always interesting, and I think very pertinent to things that are going on in the community, in the school center, the schools here. Jeremiah, what do you think? You're closer to the public school experience than Dan or I, that's for certain. When you were in high school, did you know about, or were you aware, or did you recognize that some of your fellow students were poor or hungry or...
Small town kind of helped with that, everybody kind of knows what everybody's, life situation is. And honestly, most of us were very open about it. We never minded.
Well, I've had a couple of experiences with this situation in terms of school kids and poverty in Carroll County. For nearly 10 years, I was the president of the board of directors for the Merlin Foundation here in Carroll County. One of the things that really struck me, which I was totally unaware of until it came to our attention at the foundation, was that because of poverty, there are any number of young girls who go to school who are unable to afford a properly fitting bra, if they have one at all. Mm-hmm. And the consequence for these young girls is that they are often ridiculed or bullied. And it makes their participation in any sort of athletic endeavors or anything at school extremely uncomfortable for them. And so we undertook a program to try and bring money into the school system and bring someone in to actually help these young girls, providing them with proper undergarments and properly fitting undergarments, and to fund it. We've had a few years ago a terrible time finding any interest or any money for that. I also had an experience while I was serving as a circuit judge when we became aware that in Green Forest, when it came time for the Thanksgiving lunch at school, a lot of kids were not provided with the Thanksgiving lunch because that wasn't paid for under the school system's lunch program. Okay, so my administrative assistant and her husband, who is a retired battalion fire chief from Denver, Colorado, actually went to the school and paid for everybody's lunch.
Wow, wonderful.
You know,
Jeremiah, when you were in school, did you observe the sorts of bullying that Kent has described here?
Not so much in my school. There wasn't that much, at least in my high school days.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe elementary school, I don't know. Middle school, I'm not terribly sure. But, you know, high school, it was, I don't want to say a full-on community of students, but it was, we all know each other pretty well. So bullying wasn't really something that was that open.
Class size is also an issue there.
Yeah.
Jeremiah, how many students graduated in your senior class?
I believe around 50.
50.
And we were a bigger class. We've had usually about 30. Has been in the past. My class was much larger than most.
I graduated from fairly small high school in California, and we had 350 in my graduating class.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Those are some really interesting things, and I think that Sharon, has touched on a very important subject. Carroll County, the county that we reside in, is a federally designated poverty county.
That's correct.
We are not wealthy by any means, and I think that the disparity between the haves and the have-nots in this county is as observable and as I don't know. I'm searching for a word here. As observable or as apparent as you can find anywhere. It's like living in Hollywood and seeing Beverly Hills on one side of the street and East LA on another side. You travel out to the areas here around our lake areas and see some magnificent homes, some beautiful small estates, and you drive out into the country, as I have when I was campaigning for public office, and drive the back roads around here, and you can see poverty and squalor. And it's there, and it's readily apparent, and probably no place as discernible as in our public schools.
And next up is T.Racy Johnson with Music is Medicine for the Soul. And this week she features Cowgirl's Train Set and local favorite Daniel Coy. Now here's T.Racy.
Hi everyone, I hope you all had a really great week. I know I got to catch some good music, and I'm going to share with you today a band called Cowgirl's Train Set. That's plural. Cowgirls is with an S. They wanted me to make sure everybody knew that. It's a possessive, meaning that they themselves are not cowgirls. They're more like the train set that gets pushed around by cowgirls, I suppose. I'd like to get started going right into one of their songs. This is called Toes in Mud. It's a really catchy tune. And after this, we're going to learn a little bit more about Cowgirl's Train Set.
Seen the stars in the sky, watch the hills and trees unfurl. Felt the wind hand on my face, seen all the colors of the world. But I don't wanna tell a lie this time, or rearrange the stories inside. Think of all the places we could run and hide. No, I don't wanna tell a lie this time, 'cause all I need is right before my eyes. Got nothing left to do, nothing left to find. My feet in the grass and wiggle toes in the mud. Ran out into a storm and caught a million lightning bugs. But I don't wanna tell a lie this time, or rearrange the stories inside. Think of all the places we could run and hide. I don't wanna tell a lie this time, 'cause all I need is right before my eyes. Got nothing left to do, nothing left to find. In the grass, wiggle toes in the mud. Ran out into a storm and caught a million lightning bugs. But I don't wanna tell a lie this time, rearrange the stories inside. Think of all the places we could run and hide. I don't wanna tell a lie this time, 'cause all I need is right before my eyes. Nothing left to do, nothing left to find.
Cowgirl's train set is out of Lawrence, Kansas. There are 6 fellas in the band, one of which is newcomer Daniel Coy. Danny Coy is a local Eureka Springs fella. He also does some electrician work in the area, so if you see him out and about, please make sure you say hello and let him know you heard some of his music. There's also Albert, Chris, and Charles. We have on lead vocals Hank. He goes back and forth while playing stand-up bass and shares vocals with Mike. These guys are all family men, so they don't really tour too far away from Lawrence, Kansas. I do hope they come back to our area very soon because it was a really fun show to watch. I hope to see you all out there too. Why? Well, because music is medicine for our souls, and it feels really good to be out at a live show. If you like what you're hearing, you can go to cowgirlstrainset.com. Don't forget, Cowgirls is plural. At that webpage, you can check out all of their upcoming shows as well as albums for sale. And we're going to listen to another song by Cowgirls Train Set. This is called Monster Truck Master. I really like this one. I hope you enjoy their music. We'll see you all here next week. Until then, happy trails, safe travels. Thank you so much for listening to us again here at Ozark Radio Hour.
My son, lend me your ear. Listen close so you may hear the legend of the monster truck. He was a man from Kansas land who played guitar with his 2 hands until his time came up. I saw him in the pecan grove when I was but 15 years old, and I have never felt the same. His hands were fast, his eyes were sharp, he blazed like lightning in the dark. He could make you feel the pain. But Mr. Armstrong ain't gonna play that song for me again, because his spirit's finally been set free. Oh, I can see you at the bar drinking whiskey. Kirk, the ghost of the monster truck is guiding me. It follows me. I yelled my throat hoarse at the bar while you played songs on your guitar. The crowd, they always wanted more. You ripped it up, you took a bow. The audience, they yelled and howled until you played your last encore. But Mr. Armstrong ain't gonna play that song for me again, because his spirit's finally been set free. I can hear you sing and drink lots of whiskey in the morning. The ghost of the monster truck is come for me. It's come for me. I remember when you said to me, don't let that fire stop burning. Soon it will be my time to fly. Although you died on my birthday, you blazed the trail, showed me the way, and I will play my songs until I die. But Mr. Armstrong ain't gonna play that song for me again, because his spirit's finally been set free. Maybe someday you and I will meet again. The ghost of the monster truck is guiding me. It's guiding me. Now it's time to spread the word of all the things that you have heard of the legend of the monster truck.
Well, many thanks, Tracy. And I've got to say, Dan, I really enjoyed the get-together that you and your wife Susan hosted for the radio crew. It was delightful to actually get to spend time with Tracy, who I have only known through our shows and production, and a wonderful young woman. And, I think she's doing a wonderful job. I look forward to hearing more from her. And next week, I think Tracy's going to catch up with the Lark and the Loon, and I'm looking forward to that. Jeremiah, I think that's it for today, but before we go, do you think we should have Dan back on the show?
I think we should keep Dan in the producer's box. Honestly, I miss Richard.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't know him.
Well, my goodness.
You see what happens when you come out here and spout statistics and take issue with with Jeremiah?
All I can say is, as an old person, again, that I am completely stunned that a young person such as Jeremiah would put up such a sturdy defense of an obvious sociopath. But
are you talking about Richard?
No, I'm not. But in any event, let me get out of here then, Jeremiah.
Well, I have to say, I miss Richard too. And I think he'll be back next week. The good Lord willing, and the creeks don't rise, and he don't turn over that big old Harley somewhere on the side of the road. But until then. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the Ozark Radio Hour, and as Richard would say, adios.
The Ozark Harvest Radio Hour is a production of the Eureka Springs Independent and the Inside Straight and Thanatopsis Club. Richard Pillay, executive producer. Dan Crodes, producer and writer. Dr. Sharon Sloan, technical director. Dr. Fred Mayer, director of music. G.K. Chesterton, director of philosophy and content. Jane Pillay and Bonifaci Fiacre, gardening consultants. Luca Brazzi, aquaculture consultant. Eddie Keever and the fabulous Keever sisters, advertising and sales. The Ozark Harvest Radio Hour is organic radio, always fresh, always local, and always honest. We are community radio. That means that if you would like to appear on the Ozark Harvest Radio Hour, we have to put you on. Contact us at the OzarkHarvestRadioHour.com, like us on Facebook, or look us up in the telephone book. Until next week, so long and be nice.
1, 2, 3, 4.